Now with more of this.
Because we're live.
Andrew Mason. Cecil Lammey. We got a thing or two to talk about, huh, Mace?
We're live, so anything could happen.
The mystery box. You never know what it could be. Even a boat.
A box is a box, but the mystery box could be anything. It could even be a boat. You know, I've always wanted one of those. I wish I could do that accent, that Peter Griffin, Rhode Island accent. I wish I could do that.
Yeah, it's a little close with the Virginia accent.
No, it's not. It's not close at all.
Ha! Well, we're close.
Metaphorically speaking.
That's right. Cecil Lammey, Andrew Mason.
What the heck happened?
I know. I'm moving around here, everybody. Courtland Sutton, does he want to be here or not?
Do that.
Does he want to be here or not? Like, seriously. We've got plenty of clips to get to, but Court was out there. We'll get to his day. It wasn't great at all. First day, whatever.
But we also learned he's coming back from an ankle injury, and he had ankle surgery.
Does that mess with his hands? He had 3 drops today. Does that
well, no, that explains why he's on the rehab field.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But, yes.
He has hand surgery, then we'll talk.
No, but, I mean, that's why he was over on the practice field most of the day rather than the main field with the players, and that's why. But that doesn't explain a couple of drops in the individual work. At one point, he was doing push-ups and all that. So It was what we saw. He looked rusty.
Yep. I didn't like it, Mace, because I really appreciate Courtland Sutton's game, and I mistakenly expected more. You know, he's got a drop. He looks a little rusty. Then you go, okay, whatever. But it was just not a good day for Court at all. And then he talked when he wasn't scheduled to talk, which has me have my tinfoil hat on.
Maybe he just wanted to flush it out today.
Mm-hmm. Get
it over with. Like, you know the questions are coming. Just do it and move on. And the questions were pretty pointed. I'll give Court credit for standing up there and I hate to say facing the music a little bit, but he did stand in there. He did answer a bunch of questions, but the answers may lead to more questions, if that makes any sense.
Well, and your question was the one that got everybody talking. Everybody talking. And again, we got everything the Court said, but your question, honestly, I think it's the entire show, but that's just me.
Well, do you want to get right to it? Let's play the question and answer between myself and Courtland Sutton. If that stalemate persists, might you not report for training camp, or do you plan to be around training camp?
You know, we'll see. We'll see what happens. Got a month to be able to, get things situated. Hopefully things get situated because, as you all have heard, and I will continue to say, this is where I want to be. This is home. This is where I want to, go hoist the Lombardi Trophy. This is the place where I want to be able to retire. This is a place where I want to hopefully, be able to, put enough out, once my career is done, that I can, hopefully be able to have a bid at the, Bronco Ring of Honor. But, those are all things that, have to be earned. And hopefully I'm able to have the time to be able to, continue to showcase that, I'm capable of being in that caliber of people.
That doesn't sound like Court to me.
What does it sound like?
It sounds like his agent is telling him stuff to say. There's part of Court in there, like the I want to be here stuff. I believe that.
Yeah.
I believe that he does. But when he's talking about Ring of Fame and you got to earn that, well, you also got to earn a raise that you, quite frankly, haven't earned. You have zero leverage.
It's interesting. He's talking about the Ring of Fame. He referred to it as the Ring of Honor, but I'm going to let that slide.
Right.
Because, he spent a lot of time in Texas. Everyone thinks Ring of Honor because that's what the Cowboys called it. That was kind of the first thing.
Okay.
So I hear that, And I contrast it with Quinn Miners, who also talked today. And what did Quinn talk about? He talked about you kind of got to narrow your goals, right? That he felt like he got too focused on being a Pro Bowler, which, of course, he was an alternate. And instead, he said he kind of felt like he has to put the focus kind of narrower and more in front of him, more in the short term. And I think that would be a healthy thing for Courtland Sutton. I think you can have aspirations like the Ring of Fame, but in the meantime, you got to focus on the short term. So it's almost like he's saying that, and like you say, maybe it's agent driven. It's kind of fan service if we were talking in the, in the entertainment realm.
Right.
Like, oh, people are going to hear that, and he wants to be there. He's talking about the Ring of Fame, and you kind of look deeper though. We'll see. We'll see what happens is what's telling. He's not putting a guarantee on himself being at training camp. He's leaving the door open for a holdout.
Were you expecting that answer? Because that answer is pretty spicy.
I thought he'd say he'd be there for training camp, but remember, when we were talking about this, a couple of weeks ago, and we sort of wondered, look, is he doing this to show up for minicamp as in his mind, it's his olive branch. I'm going to be there for minicamp. Maybe we get this thing squared away. But I asked him about the stalemate persisting because in the previous answer, he'd referred to the stalemate in negotiations in back and forth between himself and the Broncos. It doesn't sound like they're on the same page when it comes to this. I mean, he used at one point, we've got the quote, we can play the soundbite. At one point, he refers to how in negotiations, he's told, you're told it's not business. It's not personal. It's business, right?
Right.
And that phrase, when you use it, if I use it, it's got some edge to it because I'm thinking, if I use it in regards to a company and I hear that and I'm like, well, it may be just business to you, but it's my life. It's personal to me. Mm-hmm. And when he said that, we have that soundbite, right?
Yeah.
I sort of heard that in my mind. Let's hear from Courtland.
Yeah. I mean, that's above my pay grade. I know that the guys upstairs, the people upstairs that make those decisions, they have a rhyme and a reason for why they do it. And it's not for us to understand. We probably will never understand. The thing that I've just, have come to understand with this business that we're in is, they're always going to say that it's just business, never personal. And so we got to move accordingly.
Okay. I mean, I'm hearing that, like, he's talking about they have no rhyme or reason with it. Man, you peel back the layers on this, and I don't know if he's playing a regular season game for the Broncos this year. This does not sound, from his side at least, this does not sound like they're in a good place at all.
Right. Right. And on the answer to your question, he was talking about, I have faith that we'll find a middle ground. Middle ground? You want a slight bump in pay, there's no middle ground.
Yeah.
Like, unless they give you a slight bump in pay, which is then is like, what are we doing here? And that's why that answer was like, well, we're just, we could never understand. But what I understand is when they say it's not personal, it's just business. That's what they say. The guys upstairs. Why doesn't he say Greg? I really enjoyed being around Greg Penner. I really enjoy Sean Payton, and George Payton's my guy, man. And I've had faith in those guys. They can find the right, like, instead of the people upstairs. No, we know who writes the checks.
At least he didn't drop a Daryl Gardner when he referred to, quote, the little man upstairs, unquote, 21 years ago when he was talking about pull. Mike Shanahan. Remember that?
That's a deep pull, brother. A good one.
Hey, some things you never forget. And being in the building when that quote was circulating around, the little man upstairs, oh boy. That was on a radio interview too, if I recall correctly.
I believe so, yes.
Now, Court did not use language that pointed, but it's fairly obvious that there's a disconnect. that they're not on the same page. I mean, so did maybe he asked for more and the smaller raise is kind of his compromise. Maybe he wanted an average annual value of $23 million. And asking for a moderate raise is his way of compromising in his way of speaking. And I do, and as you hear this, you hear him talking about it, and you start thinking, okay, what are the negotiations like? I mean, I'm envisioning like Major League Baseball arbitration, where the players will present kind of their case, and the team will present their case. You know, Courtland Sutton, his case will be, hey, I was among the league leaders with 10 touchdown catches last year. Even though he even talked in his press conference how he could have had more. But that's the competitor in him. I get that.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
So Courtland's side brings up the 10 touchdowns among the league leaders. And the Broncos side will bring up, okay, how many touchdowns did he have the previous year? What has his production been over the length of the contract so far, 2 years into it? You know, where does that stack up relative to, gosh, I sound like Sean Payton again, other receivers around the league? Relative to is stuck in my head now.
That and vision.
I mean, you know what's going to happen at some point on my vacation? My daughter's going to ask me, Dad, why do you use the phrase relative to so much? And I'm going to be like, oh God, I've been at too many press conferences.
Instead of saying Con, you're going to say Sean, right?
Sean! I didn't get it. You really got to, like, if you're really good, do it right. You got to get it in your face, like Shatner did.
Mm-hmm.
You got to like, because like he twitches. I was actually watching Star Trek 2 a couple of days ago, so it's just fresh in my mind. Anyway,
very good. The rare Star Trek reference on the show. I like what Wardell says here in the chat room. He's our guy. I feel like he has 1 foot in and 1 foot out. I've never heard him talk like this. Mace, you and I have been around Sutton since day one.
Yeah,
that's why I said that doesn't sound like Courtland Sutton.
This sounded different today.
I don't like it.
And I think 1 foot in, 1 foot out is a very apt way of putting it. He sounded like somebody who was prepared to be somewhere else.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's why he's talking about like, well, I've heard other things. Okay. Well, yeah, we all have.
He, at one point, referred to kind of his team deciding what to do.
That's scary.
It sounds like Russ, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. It does. I don't like it. I don't like it at all. Again, this isn't court. This is not court. I'm sure he wants to be. I'm sure his heart wants to be here, but his representation is getting him a ticket out of town.
Trying to get more. And you know what, though? I mean, the thing is, I think his representation's like, let's take those 10 touchdowns for a spin. If it were stacked on a good season the previous year, I think that would make sense.
For sure.
The problem is it's stacked on a pedestrian year. I think his representation is looking at the 10 touchdowns that he had last year. Also looking at the quarterback room is rookie, Bo Nix, Zach Wilson, restoration project, Jarrett Stidham, 4 career starts. His representation is looking at his 10 touchdowns and looking at the quarterbacks that are in there and thinking, how does he get the numbers he needs to get to be around for 2025? And I think they full know that if Sutton goes out there and his numbers are fine, let's say he has 61 catches, 800 yards, 4 touchdowns. Okay. So, by the way, 4 touchdowns would be tied for third among the 6 seasons in his career. You know what? I'll say 5 touchdowns. Okay. So 61 catches, 800 yards, 5 touchdowns, which is actually a pretty typical type of season for him. In fact, if you take out the 2020 season, he averages, even with last year's 10 touchdowns, he averages 4.8 touchdowns a year. So what I'm saying is, I think his representation looks at that and sees that if with quarterback, maybe not instability, but question marks, that perhaps he's not likely to even meet the averages that he's posted over his career for the 5 non-injury seasons. And thus, if he goes into the market next year, if the Broncos cut him, does his contract look basically like that of Josh Reynolds?
Right. Josh Reynolds, maybe he could get Gabe Davis money, maybe, but Gabe Davis is averaging $13 million a year annually. But this year, Gabe Davis in his new contract with Jacksonville is making about $5 million.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Courtland Sutton, if he has a year that's a bit off those averages that I mentioned, then his big contract days are over.
Yeah.
So that's the rationale. I think that's the rationale from a business sense. So it's interesting. Like, he has the quote about, it's not personal, it's business. Well, I'd say, yeah, on his side, it's business too.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The business of, how do I get more guaranteed money? Most of the guaranteed money on his contract is gone. And understanding that maybe the last chance for another significant score contractually is a restructured contract that gives him more guaranteed and maybe keeps him around another year, even beyond the length of this deal, which expires after the 2025 season, because he did also allude to wanting to be around and be around for Bo Nix's development if Bo Nix is the guy. And so there's all these all these things going on here, right? I wouldn't say mixed messages, but there are a lot of layers to this back and forth.
Well, and here's the thing. Bo Nix is better with Courtland Sutton, but they'll be fine without him. 2 numbers to throw at you, Mace. One, at Football Guys, we have Courtland Sutton projected for 65 catches, 855 yards, and 5 touchdowns.
So you've got him
accurate.
A little above average on receptions, a little above average on yardage, and slightly above average on touchdowns. We're basically right there. Again, for his career averages. Okay. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. And then here's the other number I'll throw at you. There were 4 receivers last year who had double-digit touchdowns. Sutton is included in one of those, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone else had almost 1,000 more yards receiving.
Wow.
1,000 more yards. Tyreek Hill had 17-17, and he had 12 touchdowns. CeeDee Lamb had 16-51 and 10 touchdowns. Now, Mike Evans had 12-33, so merely only, 500 yards or whatever, and 13 touchdowns. But the other guys on that list, 10 touchdowns. Yeah, the other guys had almost 1,000 more yards.
Yeah.
Not combined. Almost each one of them.
I mean, you can sort of understand the Broncos' perspective if they come in the numbers argument and they say, okay, you have 10 touchdowns in 1 year. In your other 4 full seasons, you had 14. That's why I've said, this is why I've sat back and looked at Sutton's production, taken into account below average quarterbacking. But again, I always say DJ Moore is very productive despite below average quarterbacking basically over the entire length of his career. So looking at his contract numbers and especially how they settle compared to where receiver contract numbers have gone in the 2.5 years since he signed that extension and his own production, I really think both sides are getting a fair deal.
Yeah.
And I think that's how the Broncos, I think, they probably would be like, okay, yeah, maybe, we wish they were getting a little more juice from this squeeze, but it's, this isn't the Chris Bryant contract with the Colorado Rockies, right? It's not the Russell Wilson contract. We're keeping him around as a crater in the cap. This is something you can pretty easily work with. Courtland Sutton's contract was not a problem for the Denver Broncos relative to the production that he posted over the 2 years to date on the contract. Not a problem at all, in my opinion. Your mileage may vary out there in the audience. I know people disagree on that. I know Will Peterson of our denversports.com vociferously disagrees with me on that because we got into a little debate about it. But if you're the Broncos, I think the Broncos are getting fair value. I think Sutton's getting fair value. And I think that's why the Broncos are sitting here with Sutton coming to them, and they're probably like, what's going on here, man?
Right. We do have the chat room going back and forth about it. It's okay. It was reported, as everyone expected, that he would show up to mandatory minicamp. We saw him today. Training camp is different. So, because I know the chat room's like, he said he was going to be there. No, he said he was going to be at mandatory, which we all expected anyway.
Yes.
That was going to happen. But now training camp is in question for Courtland Sutton. And it's
by his own admission.
Yes.
I mean, we'll see. Yes. Like, it's one of those things when you hear something said in real time and you're like, oh boy.
Yeah.
How many times have you heard we'll see at a press conference and you felt confident? Right?
It doesn't happen.
It's a loaded phrase.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And whether he realized it or not, he just, he put a big fat burger out there, man.
Mm-hmm.
It was, like I heard,
spicy,
it's funny,
juicy, whatever.
He talked about his ankle surgery. He talked about how he and the team had said, hey, you can rehab that back in Florida, blah, blah, blah. But I heard, man. By the way, it's funny. The other thing on We'll See, it's something I say to my daughter sometimes, and she hates it.
Well, it means no.
Yeah. Not always with me. It means I think about it. I do think about it. But most of the time in adult areas, it doesn't end well. What
really grinds my gears, Mace?
What, Peter Griffin?
I'm not saying Daniel's statement here, but when they said 22 offense was garbage, okay, I point you to Justin Jefferson. Pretty good, right? Kind of good.
Despite last year,
Sharon Hall, Josh Dobbs, was Nick Mullins like he went through?
They were calling for Mullins by December because we had that immortal Jake Browning, Nick Mullins duel on a Saturday afternoon, which was actually a pretty entertaining game.
Can we point the finger at Nathaniel Hackett and whatever? Yes, we can. We can say, oh, the quarterback. No, it's you. It's you. Little life philosophy. Again, this isn't on Daniel's statement, but little life philosophy.
Yeah.
We're all driving our own car. So I can blame my boss or my dad or my job or my coach in high school, or I can blame me. Sutton, it's on you. You're putting the offense. Yeah. Oh, Russell Wilson. No. Justin Jefferson got a big deal. He wasn't saying it's them.
Well, and Courtland Sutton likes Russell Wilson as well.
Is that part of it? Speaking of Hackett, let's talk about Jarrett Evero. Jarrett Evero just left. He had a job offer to stay. He just straight up left because it made me mad. Fired his buddy, which is whatever, right? They're best friends since college. But we got to get to that, dude. We have to get to that. Is that part of it? Like they just fired his buddy.
Yeah.
Is it even a small?
And he put out the tweet, the immortal, the GIF of Will Smith standing around at the end of Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, looking around the empty house.
Right.
He put that out there, and I know there are some that may say, "Oh, that's not a big deal." No, that that was put out there with some thought. And I think he said things today with thought and with intention. And the intention is in revealing to the public that, this stalemate. That's what he called it. He called it a stalemate. And how do stalemates between player and team usually get resolved? Especially when they've got some people at the position. I mean, Tim Patrick had a good day today. I'm still a little concerned about him on long straight line runs. There's still a hitch. Mm-hmm. But man, you watch him cut. You watch him run routes. It's precise. He's got good timing. I mean, could Tim Patrick be like end of career Larry Fitzgerald in Arizona, where, okay, he didn't have the speed, but boy, you could count on him to get 8 to 10 yards, right? Boom. Just keep the line moving, as they say in baseball, right?
I'm doing my part.
Yeah. Oh, there it is. That's what Court put out in March.
It's got to be at least a small part of it. I'm not saying it's everything. And he loves Russell Wilson. He's betrayed, but no, that was your guy. He got you 10 touchdowns. He got you maybe paid, but not here. It's not here. Yeah. And let's talk about Precedent, Mace, before we wrap up today's show, because we have another show for you. And I'll go ahead and promote it because the pressure's on me to edit it while I'm doing Denver Sports Tonight. But anyway, I will tell you this. He put the pressure on. Russell Wilson almost getting paid. And here's the thing. You set a bad precedent. If you're Greg Penner, the guy that signs the checks, guys upstairs, guys can just ask for small raises. You set a very bad precedent. And they got to pay Pat Surtain. They got to pay Quinn Miners, both well deserving of large contracts.
Yeah, and like I mentioned with Quinn Miners earlier in the show, he's not focused on the big thing. He's focused on what's in front of you. It's it's like Yoda told Luke Skywalker, he's watched for a long time. All his life, he looked away to the future, never his mind on where he was, what he was doing. Quinn Miners, his mind is on what he's doing right now. Mm-hmm. The 6 inches right in front of him. Courtland Sutton's talking about the Ring of Fame when his resume is so far from that. Again, I'm not putting down having aspirations, but you got to distill it down to what's in front of you. And if you distill it down to what it's in front of you and take it step by step, the future, which by the way would include things contractually, it'll take care of itself. I mean, I gotta say, watching today, and again, it was another day of moving guys up and down the depth chart, but receiver, right. Mix and match, all that.
Right.
You looked at Marvin Mims Jr., Josh Reynolds, Tim Patrick, Devon Vele, all having moments.
God, you're timing it up with the kiss, right? You got to time it up with the kiss. Devon Vele, huh? Looking good.
Yeah.
Hey,
Troy Franklin. Yeah, it looked good. It looked good today. It looked good. Basically everyone but Zach Wilson was making plays with these guys. So I'm sorry. I don't want to turn this into a kick Zach Wilson when he's down show.
No.
But you're seeing plus plays from Jarrett Stidham, and you're seeing plus plays from Bo Nix.
Our next show for OBT2 tonight, which again I'll work on it. I'll work on editing while I'm on air on the radio.
You are amazing that you're gonna actually do an hour of radio whilst editing. That's man, and you just promised to the public we're getting.
I did.
Show.
I said it, but I'll promise you this, Mace. I'm going to give Zach Wilson the Spencer Rattler treatment. It's so bad, I'm not going to say anything else about him.
Whoa. Okay.
It is bad. So there you have it.
Okay,
Mace, let's wrap this up because we got
I'm
another
gonna
one
be
to record.
I'm gonna be listening while this is me multitasking tonight. I am cutting video. I am writing another couple of stories. I'll be listening to you. Oh yeah, I'll probably find a little time to watch some baseball because it's going to be on in the background. It's just what I do.
Sure. What else do you do? With you guys can help us out on YouTube, Mace. How do they do that?
Like,
comment,
share,
subscribe,
hit that notification bell
so that you
never miss
vid. That's right. He's Andrew Mason. Follow him on all the socials at Mace Denver. I'm at Cecil Lammey saying OBT is BFD. Thanks for watching, everyone. Stay tuned, and would you please stay frosty?